Hello and welcome to this special episode of the We Are CCA podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jake Ramsey, always joined by my wonderful co-host, Ian. Say hello, Ian.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
We have another special episode to talk about careers today. It's going to be a little bit of a different spin on it. We're going to be talking about careers, which is kind of cool. So we're not going to be actually talking about a career specifically, but we're going to be talking about how to have these conversations, what to talk about or things to consider as you move forward in your career exploration journey, and factors to consider as you decide what you want to pursue beyond high school. To help us do that, we have a very special guest. We're going to let him introduce himself here in a second, but he comes from the PA Chamber of Commerce, and very excited to have him on. A lot of great experience. And Allen, if you want to introduce yourself to the group, go ahead.
Thanks, Jake. Hi, I'm Allen Norton. I'm the Workforce Development Executive with the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. And thank you guys for having me on today.
So, Allen, can you tell us a little bit about what you do with your role at the Chamber?
Sure. There's quite a few prongs to it. First, I'm actually out there creating awareness of just how awesome Pennsylvania is for opportunity among the state's youth, and also helping them learn that there's more than one path to a good career. There's multiple on and off ramps to career pathways, and helping them understand how the job market's changing and how the Industrial Revolution is going to affect their choices moving forward. And then we're also working to create business and education and private-public partnerships to decrease the skills and opportunity gap that's out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on and sharing some of your knowledge and information with our students and families. Really appreciate that. I guess best place to start maybe would be, can you talk a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing in Pennsylvania currently, industries that are on the rise, opportunities maybe that are on the rise, and things that are maybe phasing out or not really going to be a factor in the next 10 years?
That's a great question. The one most important thing is this isn't our first industrial revolution. We've gone through these before, and every time this happens, we do shed some jobs, but we gain more new jobs. And that's what's happening now. The latest statistics I've read is in the next 2 years, we'll shed about 75 million repetitive or entry-level jobs to automation, but we're going to create 133 million new middle-skilled technical jobs to replace them. So kind of an interesting place we're in right now with how fast technology is advancing the changing job market. Really more than anything, I would say if the job you're interested in is something that could be done easily by a computer, a robot, or an automated system, probably safe to bet that job's going to be gone in a few years. I actually, my first career path, when I was in high school, all I wanted was to be a radio disc jockey. And when I started working in radio circa 1993, I was there when they started installing this computer system into the station. And at the time, I didn't know what the internet was. I didn't know that online was a thing. But that's what it was. They were putting an online feed into the radio station, and this was going to become a syndicated radio station. I think it was based in Georgia, and they actually multiple stations across the country. So I said, "Oh, that's the future of my job. It's going to be automated someday." I went for another career path, but now we're starting to see that in a lot of career pathways,
which is kind of scary when you think about like manufacturing. And I think the manufacturing industry as a whole right now, especially in Pennsylvania, is dying for people. But I mean, if I was a student or a parent, I would kind of go, no, I don't know about manufacturing. How do you, if you want to do manufacturing, if you like working with your hands, how do you get into manufacturing safely with knowing that being able to know that you have the skills to weather that automation component?
That's a great question. And actually, Pennsylvania ranks 8th in manufacturing nationwide. So we're a strong manufacturing base here. And whether you're in an urban area, a rural area, a suburban area, there's probably a number of manufacturers near you who are looking for help and they pay very well. Actually, one of the stories I tell when I talk to students is about a young lady named Jess who went to the community college I worked at. She did a mechatronics degree. I didn't even know what mechatronics was until 9 years ago. I thought they were building transformers downstairs. But I think part of the issue is, the world of career tech ed that I grew up in and most parents grew up in is different than the world of career tech ed now. The factory jobs, which were entry-level manufacturing and factory jobs that my grandparents and parents had, aren't the same as they are today. So I think, you don't know what you don't know. And if that's all you've been exposed to is, oh, that's dirty, that's dangerous, then you don't realize today some of these manufacturing facilities are cleaner than some of the office spaces I've been in. And because automation has taken hold and there's a lot of automated systems, well, now we need people who can keep those systems up and running when they break down, who can do that reprogramming so that when it's time to do a new task, it can be programmed to do a new task. So those mechatronics engineers keep the manufacturing facilities running by keeping the machines moving. And think about all the manufacturing that's done here in Pennsylvania. So Jess, I started to tell her story. When she graduated from the community college, she came back all excited because the hiring manager where she went to work for one of the snack food companies down in Hanover, said, because you only have college experience, we can only pay you $24 an hour to start. Only $24 an hour without any experience.
Wow.
And they have overtime. So if she works on a Sunday, she gets double time. So she makes $48 an hour every Sunday that she works. How many college degrees can guarantee you that you're going to make $24 an hour when you graduate?
Very few that I've heard of.
Yeah. And because of the shortage of folks with these skills, there's a number of overtime opportunities. And it's not unusual to hear people, hey, with some overtime every week, I'm making six figures at 19, 20 years old.
And it's just going to go up from there as you get.
And here's my idea. Parents can't wait for their kids to move out. You know what? Stop sending them to 4-year school without a goal. Send them to their local community college or CTE school. When they're 19 or 20, they'll make enough money to move out of your house.
And you brought up Industrial Revolution. I think it's probably important to maybe talk a little bit about what you mean by that, and sort of what that's doing within our industry and economy nationally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So jobs that can be automated. Well, think about in previous revolutions. There was a time when seamstress was a major career pathway. You had a number of seamstresses, and then along came sewing machines. And wow, a sewing machine can do the same thing as a seamstress a whole lot faster and a whole lot more efficiently. So now we didn't have a need for seamstress anymore, but we needed people who could work the sewing machines. So that's kind of what's happening now. Actually, last summer I saw they actually have automated umpires now for baseball games. So it's a robot that watches the batter's box and watches the plays on the field. They actually did a contest, took a real ump and an automated ump and had them compete. The real ump only missed one call. But again, if I'm a CEO and I can have that job done by a computer rather than paying someone a salary every year, health benefits every year, it's cheaper to just buy the computer. And, then now I might need people who can fix that computer when it needs fixed or upgrade it when it needs upgraded. So yeah, it's just the normal flow of our economy. I watched a TED Talk last summer, and I can't remember who it was, but he said something fascinating. He said, those of you like my age, your age, who grew up watching the Jetsons, that was the future. The Jetsons was the future. Now your kids watch the Jetsons, that's the past. It's already happened.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's like 33 careers that you guys have identified that are kind of in demand right now. Can you kind of go over maybe some of those and what maybe just made you decide that those were kind of in demand right now? And
Sure. So every year, Pennsylvania's Labor and Industry, Department of Labor and Industry puts out an in-demand occupations list. And so what we do is we comb through that list and we look at not which jobs have the highest percentage of growth, but which jobs have the most number of job openings expected for the year. And we find what are the top 33. And then we actually post those out on our Start the Conversation Here website. And actually what's interesting now that our kids are home from schooling virtually during the pandemic, two of the jobs that are on there are elementary teacher and secondary teacher. There is I'm seeing that now with my kids' virtual schooling. It's hard for them to find substitute teachers right now to fill in when teachers are sick. So there's a need for secondary school teachers. That's a career that requires a 4-year degree and recommend that you have a master's. Mechanical engineers, civil engineers, but there's also a number of jobs on there that don't require a 4-year degree. Many you can do with an apprenticeship or by attending CTE or community college program. The top 4 are actually all health careers. And it makes sense because there's currently, if you look at all the healthcare openings in America, from CNA and medical assistant all the way up to ophthalmologist, physical therapist, neurosurgeon, and you take the kids who are currently in a CTE program, a community college, or a college for some sort of healthcare practice when they graduate, there's still a gap. There's still 1.2 million job openings for which we don't have 1.2 million students in the pipeline. So it kind of makes sense that the top 4 most in-demand jobs are in the healthcare arena. And then I think number 5 is application programmer, so a computer coding skill. And number 6 is truck driver.
Can I ask and this may be a dumb question, but why use that statistic, like the total number of positions available, and not the percentage of growth?
Because let's say you have 500 people working in this job now, and you're going to experience 100% growth in the next 6 years. So you need 500 more people. Whereas if you have 5,000 people who are currently doing this job, but you're going to have
50%
growth. You need
500. Gotcha.
So there's going to be 1,000 openings versus 500 openings. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I was curious. But, yeah. Why that?
Some careers are great percentage, but they're at there's 20 jobs available in Pennsylvania. And I'm like,
exactly.
Yeah, 20% growth, but there's only 20 jobs. So is that really the direction you want to go into? What is good? Like when you're thinking about what sort of career, you're in maybe 9th, 10th, 11th grade, and you're like, what am I going to do? And we're asking those questions to our students right now. What should the students be really thinking about? Like, what is the priority, or in your opinion, being on the business end of things, the priorities for what, if you're looking at a career, what should you look at?
Yeah, well, I think more than anything, and I grew up thinking this way. I'm sure you guys did. And I still see kids thinking this way. Your career isn't an endpoint. Oftentimes, we talk to kids as if, I want to be a nurse or I want to be a police officer, and that's the endpoint. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the endpoint. There's progressions from there, pathways from there. If I graduate as a nurse, that doesn't have to be the endpoint. Maybe now I want to go on and get my master's and become a nurse anesthetist or a nurse practitioner. Maybe I want to become the director of nursing at the hospital and oversee the other nursing departments or manage a specific department. So understanding that just, there's other options and pathways beyond that. Don't just think of it as an endpoint, but a journey. Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering here if maybe, if students should, because there's some careers in here I'm looking at nursing assistant or medical assistant. That would not be your endpoint, but that is definitely if you wanted to get a job and start working and get work experience, because a lot of employers, don't want a blank resume. They want skills. They want you to have to done something, or at least demonstrated that you'll show up to work on time.
Mm-hmm.
Would you, instead of looking at maybe what your endpoint might be, or maybe not, forget that, career, maybe look at the pathway and kind of go, okay, how can I start developing those skills? Maybe you get in there, go get your certification, become a certified nursing assistant. And then while you're doing that, go get your RN and then kind of move up from there. Does that make sense? Or am I?
Actually, Ian, you touched on two really key points there. One, you talked about the what we call employability skills. Our surveys, our employer economic surveys the past 2 years, when you look at the skills shortage in PA, employers struggle more with finding folks with the right soft skills or employability skills than technical skills. In our most recent economic survey, it was 52% of employers who cited soft skills as an issue versus only 39% who cited technical skills. And the thing I've heard from a number of businesses over the past year and a half is, hey, give me someone that shows up on time, that doesn't have to be told, put your cell phone away every half hour, and doesn't quit right at quitting time, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Till the job's done. Give me someone with those soft skills. I'll teach them how to use the equipment. I'll teach them how to do these technical things. So the soft skill development is so important. That's what employers struggle the most with. But the other thing you hit on there that was key is, like you mentioned, medical assisting or CNA. It's important students realize there's people out there who want to invest in you and your education. So I'll harken back to my days as a community college rep. We had a young lady who was a student worker in our office. She was a medical assisting student. Our medical assistant program was 10 to 7, 5 days a week. Couldn't really work while you're going to school in that program. And it's only a year. After a year, you're off, you're working as a medical assistant. Well, she knew once she went to work as a medical assistant at whichever healthcare company, they pretty much all pay 75% tuition reimbursement. So she knew her end goal was to become an RN. So now wherever she's working, they're going to be paying her a decent salary as a medical assistant and paying for her to go to school, or paying for the bulk of that cost at least. So in another 2 or 3 years, when she finishes that associate's degree and becomes an RN, now that same company that just invested that money in her becoming an RN is going to have to give her a raise and give her a bigger job title. And then from there, if she decides, hey, I want to become the director of nursing, or I want to become a nurse anesthetist, now I've got to go a little further in my education, and this hospital or health system is going to continue to pay for that to invest in me. And then when I reach that end point, hey, they're going to give me a raise. So, rather than me graduating, if I'm a student right now, I'm looking at, instead of me going to college and paying for myself, who's going to pay for it for me? And since we're on the subject, trucking is another area. 2 years ago, if you told me you wanted to be a trucker, I would have given you a list of schools and said, here, these are the places around here you can learn to be a trucker. It takes 5 or 6 weeks, boom. Now, just about anyone who wants to be a trucker can find a company that will pay for it for them. And then guess what? You have a 2-year job commitment after that. You don't have to worry about being unemployed for 2 years, because that company that invested in you is going to want your skills for those 2 years after you graduate.
Yeah, Alan, we actually did a podcast a couple episodes ago with Pitt, Ohio, and a recruitment specialist there. And they talked about their professional driver's apprenticeship program. And they were starting people at like 17 an hour, just, learning how to, work the dock, and then, eventually working their way up to where they're driving, driving the big rigs. And they were paying for you every step of the way. This was a job. It wasn't, you were learning through job experience, and you were being paid to do it. It wasn't you taking out a loan and going to school and then trying to find a job afterwards. It was, we're going to teach you how to do it, and then we're going to have you do it once the training's done.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of, there are a lot of businesses that will pay and invest in their employees in their education to further them along. I mean, CCA is one of them. We have a tuition reimbursement program as well, to help teachers advance themselves in their careers or other staff. And that whole idea of, well, I'm going to graduate high school, I'm going to go to a 4-year college, and then I'm going to get a job, and then I might go back, get my master's degree too, and then I'll get a job. Well, that's kind of a dated way of thinking, is it not?
It's, I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's become my mantra is, figure out your career path first, and then what do you need to get there? And when I talk to students now, when I go into classrooms and do presentations, I tell them, when I was growing up, and you guys probably grew up in the same era, I can't remember too many times that anyone ever asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I can remember a whole bunch of times people asked me where I was going to college.
Yeah.
It was kind of the mark of success was, where are you going to college? Where are you going to college? Where are you going to college? Didn't matter what you wanted to be. Didn't matter if you wanted to be a landscaper for the rest of your life. You had to go to college. And at that time, in that era, it made sense because there were more jobs than people to fill the jobs. So that was a way that companies used to kind of fill their ranks, was a bachelor's degree. Well, now there's more jobs in America than people to fill them. And so companies are getting smarter about hiring for skills rather than necessarily a degree. So it is kind of outdated. I gave a speech a couple weeks ago, and I said just that, we're in a different era. We're in a different economy. Why do we still teach people the same way we did even 10 years ago? Why do we still hire people the same way we did even 5 years ago?
Mm-hmm. So when you're talking with students and kids about, choosing a career path, I mean, other than the sort of the traditional, what do you like and what do you want to do, that sort of match those interests, what are some of the other factors that you try to have them consider when going through this sort of career exploration process?
That's a great question. I think more than anything, the first thing is awareness. So many students don't realize what jobs are out there today. And I think a lot of that is because of us as parents and even educators who are in the classroom. We don't get outside and we don't get exposed to how the job market's changing and how technology is driving that change. So being aware that the job market today is probably a lot different than what you think. As an example, and you guys will be aware of this, but the general public might not be. Back in June, so right at the height of the pandemic, Pittsburgh had the highest number of tech job openings of anywhere in the country. Technology job openings right there in Western PA. And a lot of it is IT support jobs, computer networking, cybersecurity, manufacturing. And again, that kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. The world I grew up in, if you worked in manufacturing, it was dirty, it was dangerous. Now the world of manufacturing is a lot different. There's a lot of robots and automation systems. Everything's run by computer. So we need more tech folks who can keep those systems running smoothly. I was joking with a Cnc Machinist lately. Cnc machine is really cool. Basically, you're a computer programmer, and you program the computer to make the cuts the right way so that when the product is done being made, it looks how it should, it measures how it should. But you could go to work as a CNC machinist in business casual clothes, and one of the guys was joking with me at the facility. There's guys in their 70s who still work there and won't retire because they pay me this for a job that's not that difficult. Like I can dress, it's not dangerous. Certainly it takes some critical thinking and math skills, but there's a lot harder ways to make that kind of money.
So just obviously being aware of sort of the changes and maybe anticipating some of the things that are coming in the future. I think I heard a statistic, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 40 there, of the students who are graduating today, 40% of those students will be working in jobs that don't exist currently right now in 10 years. So, it's always changing. We have to be adaptable. So awareness being one, what are some of the other things that you factor into that conversation?
We talked about the employability skills already. Those are things you can't automate. Those things that make us human, the empathy, the ability to communicate professionally, to write professionally. Those we call them transferable skills because, if my job goes away, I've still got these skills that can be used by someone else, and someone else will want to pay me for. And they might have to upskill me in some other areas, but I have those foundational skills they need for me to be successful. Right now, one of our conversations is around, especially the hospitality industry. There's a wealth of people who hopefully eventually they'll be able to get back to work, but for the immediate and near future, their job's not coming back. We just don't have enough demand in the world of hospitality right now during a pandemic. So I think about housekeepers. My wife used to manage a hotel. Even though that's a minimum wage job, think about what housekeepers do. They show up early in the morning, talk about punctuality. They don't quit till the job is done. There's no end time. It's when the job is done. They have a keen attention to detail because of, the individual rooms they're cleaning. So even though they might not have certain skills to do another job, they've got those employability, and they've proven those employability skills. If someone has worked at a hotel for 5 years as a housekeeper, that's someone I'm willing to take under. If I was a CEO, I'd hire them and teach them how to use the equipment because I know they're going to show up to work every day. I know they're going to work hard. They've already got that proven track record of it. Mm-hmm.
Those are things employers can't teach you. You can't teach that stuff.
You can't. You cannot teach that.
No. I'm wondering, are there resources out there for somebody who's interested in following kind of that career path? Are those laid out somewhere?
That's a good question. There's a lot of resources out there now. Of course, ONET is a great resource. onetonline.org, I think it is. And there's a lot of wealth of information on different career pathways there. PA Career Zone, which is our Department of Ed's Career Zone. What I like about theirs is they actually have videos to go along with the job. So if you want to learn what's a mortician do, you can go on there and watch a video about mortuary sciences and what their day-to-day looks like.
Right.
If I want to know what an electrician does, anything that's skilled, I like to think of it this way. As a homeowner, there's a lot of homeowners across the country. Most of us don't know how our plumbing works, how our electrical works. So we're going to need to hire people occasionally to do those jobs for us. So anything that's a skill, that's a safe bet because it's going to be hard to automate electrician and plumbers because of the nuances of those jobs. And you can make really good money doing that without the need for going to college and spending all that debt. And then, of course, our website, starttheconversationhere.com, has a great career calculator, has the occupations page. We do a workforce spotlight each week, which highlights an education provider. We actually did one on CCA a few weeks ago.
So you brought up the career calculator. Can you talk a little bit about that and what it is?
Sure. Actually, fast forward to before my time at the chamber, when I worked for almost 7 years as a recruiter at the local community college. And what I would do is I would go into classrooms and I would show kids to help overcome that. For some reason, there's this stigma associated with community colleges. I don't understand it, but it's there. So I would show kids, for example, look, here's a kid who comes to our community college, does an HVAC program, does mechatronics, and the total investment's going to be about $12,000. And then they're going to come out year 2 or year 3 and make $50,000 a year or more. And then I would show them, okay, student B goes to 4-year school at $25,000 a year, and that's the inexpensive choice. For 4 years, now they're going to come out year 5 and make Y. And then I would show the kids, this is why more than one option is is important, because this option may end up just leading to a path of debt, whereas this option may lead you right to a profitable future. So really, it was designed to get kids thinking about your college is your first big investment. You want to ensure whatever post-secondary decision you make, college, community college, trade school, apprenticeship, that you'll earn that investment back quickly. If I can go to a community college for 2 years and then a state school, or I could go to a private school that costs as much of all those years in one, what's the point of going to the more expensive private school if they're both going to get me out at the same point? One's just going to leave me with more debt. The other part of it was to showcase entry-level salaries. So basically the way it works, students will go in, they'll choose a career path, they'll choose a PA school, and then when they calculate it, it shows them how long they have to work to earn back that specific college investment. It gives them a snapshot of what their monthly income will look like and what their monthly student loan debt will look like. And it really, I've been proud. Kids, this year so far, when I've been presenting it, the students have been really engaged. And it's really gotten them thinking about and talking about, well, why am I choosing this college or this career instead of that one? And hopefully it's driving that conversation forward. But really, yeah, it's designed to help. Look, the truth is, right now, according to the National Center for Education Statistics and Burning Glass, for every 100 students we send off to traditional four-year university, only 59 actually graduate, 41 drop out. Of the 59 who graduate, only 33 actually go on to use their degree or make a salary commensurate with the degree. The other 25 end up working in a field that they could have started right out of high school. They didn't even need to go to college for. So we could do better. Those 25 kids that end up working in a job that they didn't need the degree for, why'd they take all that time and debt just to end up working somewhere they could have, at age 18? Maybe there was a better option. And for the 41 who drop out, there's a better way. There's other alternatives. College isn't for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's something that, I know that Ian and I have met with over 100 students now this year. And I know just from one of the things that I talk about with some of the kids is, consider the financial options and the financial consequences of picking a career that requires a certain path, and what the choices along the way, like community college or some other things that might lessen sort of the financial consequences of choosing a particular college or whatever to go into, just for quote unquote the college experience. Yes, college is wonderful, and I look back on the time that I spent in school, and I had a great time. I look at that payment I make every month to my college loans, or I used to. I'm done. I've finally paid them off now.
Good for you, Jake.
Yeah, but I'm 30. I'm 37, so I've been carrying a debt with me since I graduated at 22, and that's a long time to carry a debt and have a financial responsibility to pay it back, because you can't be forgiven for it. It's the only loan that you cannot, be forgiven on. And I think college choices and those types of things are much more a financial decision these days than maybe what was considered in the past. But I know it's something that I talk about with my wife and my kids, what makes sense financially. And not necessarily, picking a college based on the atmosphere or experience that you're going to have. College is much more, I think if you think about it much more like a tool or an opportunity to develop your toolbox and to be prepared to move on and do it that way, it's not necessarily going to be critical that you go to your dream school for 4 years. It just may be, that might be part of it, but it might not be for everybody.
Yeah, it's like I said, that's one of the reasons we need to ask the question first: what do you want to do for a career? And then how do you get there? Because as you'll see on the occupations page, if you want to be a teacher, you got to go get a bachelor's degree. But maybe instead of going to a school that costs 60 or 70 grand a year, you can go to a school that costs 15 grand a year, because coming out as a teacher, you know what you're going to make and you know what you can afford. So based on knowing what that salary is going to look like, why would you choose the more expensive option? Same thing. We need we ended 2019 with almost 500,000 open cybersecurity jobs in the country. So we have a need for folks with those skills, and that requires a bachelor's degree. But again, it's what do I need to do to get there? If it's bachelor's degree, great. Okay. Like you said, Jake, what's the most financially sensible way to get there? Actually, I had a great conversation, speaking of jobs that are in demand, with one of our electric companies earlier this morning. They're trying to figure out how to hire more linemen. They have a lineman training program. When you finish that program, you will make $70,000 a year with this company. It takes 1 year, costs about $6,000. You will make 70 grand when you graduate. So at 19 years old, for about a $6,000 investment, you could be 70 grand as a lineman.
Is there like
can't beat that.
No, but is there a database nationally or within the state that has some of those opportunities, have those types of opportunities outlined to students? I mean, how many? I didn't know of that. I didn't know that was a thing. And we've been talking with students all school year so far, and maybe that would be an option to throw out there to students. Is there a database or something somewhere where students can find this info about like this?
I'm not familiar with a national database. I've used some of the government provided websites like BLS and ONET that we talked about. But I'm not familiar with the national database. I actually did make an e-intro already to Amanda.
Yeah.
So you guys will be on their radar soon.
Okay.
Good.
That's a great, and think about it. I've seen linemen, even as a kid. I used to see them up there, but I never thought about it as a career. And our parents all work places that have a variety of jobs. I was thinking about that this morning. As a kid, I might think a law firm is all just lawyers. Well, they're a law firm, so that's what they do, but they still need administrative assistants. They still need IT professionals to keep their networks up and running. They still need human resources to do their recruiting and their employee benefits. They still need marketing and sales. So even though it's a law firm, there's still a number of other jobs within that organization. So I think that's another part of it, is making sure students understand there's a wealth of opportunities within these different organizations. Just because they're the electric company doesn't mean it's all a bunch of electricians.
Right. So almost kind of, almost advising, find where you want to work or who you want to work for. And, since most employers will, compensate you for education. I mean, you could come in, get that entry level job, and then have the company pay for that bachelor's degree, that certification, or, the master's degree as you grow with the company.
Absolutely.
Well, Allen, I really appreciate you coming in and, being a guest today, kind of sharing some of the information and wealth of knowledge that you have and experience that you've, had over the years with having these conversations with students and with kids, and just sort of your overall knowledge of the industries in PA and sort of trends that you're seeing. And we'll probably have to have you back for part 2. I have questions. I have more questions than I have answers right now, but that's okay.
It's easy to go down the rabbit hole when we talk about workforce, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, with what Ian and I do here at CCA as career facilitation coordinators, we have these conversations with students, and I want to make sure that when I'm talking with a student that we're having authentic and honest conversations about careers, because you want students to make informed decisions, and in order to make informed decisions, you gotta give them the truth and be honest with them, and deliver it in a way that's authentic and meaningful to them. And I think it's important to especially when you're talking about something that's going to impact you for much longer than what you are in school, quote unquote, your work life is a lot longer in years than your schooling is. I think it's important to make informed decisions about what you're going to do, because we know that people, job satisfaction is a big determining factor of stress, just general life stress, and feeling valued within your community, and feeling like you're making a difference and having an impact and connection with the world in general. So I think it's important. I really appreciate you coming in. Where if people want to go and see what information is available through the PA Chamber of Commerce, where can they go? What information might they find there?
So, of course, the starttheconversationhere.com is our workforce-focused site. That's where we have tools and resources to help folks connect the dots with career pathways. And then pachamber.org is the PA Chamber site. That's where you can learn about our advocacy efforts on the Hill here in Harrisburg, what events the Chamber is hosting. You can learn about who our members are. Our investor membership is listed there. But yeah, we have Pennsylvania is a great place to be. I was one of those students who grew up thinking that I just can't wait to get out of here. But I'm aware of the opportunities. And now that I'm back and have been for 15 years now, I think, there really is a wealth of opportunity here in PA. And hopefully, if nothing else, we've got your students thinking about, where in PA do I want to stay?
Right. And as you said at the beginning, the industry changes and is changing. So, I'm sure we'll have you back for the Allen Norton update where we are in Pennsylvania now.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Ian. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate it. Have a great one, everybody. If you want to learn more, make sure check out the links in the podcast description. We'll include everything that Alan was talking about. We'll have some links in there. We'll also have some links potentially to our bookings page for your career consultations. We'll include that as well. Alan, thank you so much. And everybody, remember that we are CCA.